Hello and welcome to another episode of Dawncast. I'm Di Lee.
And I'm Kathy Ngo.
And thanks for joining us. Today we've got the Mayor of Bellingen, Dominic King, joining us on Dawncast. Thanks for giving us your valuable time, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, no problem at all. It's a pleasure.
Great.
It's a pleasure to talk about positive stuff in these times. So.
Oh, look, absolutely. How is the community going in terms of COVID-19? What's your area like?
Oh, look, we're lucky. We're lucky here. We don't have a very large population. There's only 13,000 people in our electorate, which is quite big. So we've got plenty of nice beaches and forests and stuff to hang out in. And I think people are sort of adapting. They're, I think a lot of people say it's a great place to be in isolation. So I certainly feel that way as well.
The restrictive measures have been eased. Is that creating any opportunities there for Bellingen, for the businesses around there and the community?
Yeah, look, it was busy again this weekend. So, I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but yeah, certainly our businesses were feeling it. We are a tourist town. We rely on those tourist numbers to boost a lot of our shops and cafes and stuff like that. So our economy is heavily invested in tourism, and so a lot of people have done it really, really tough. So it's been nice to have people back, but there's always a little bit of fear that we're coming back too soon. I don't know. Hopefully that's not the case.
What sort of tourism do you mostly expect in your area? Because I noticed that you've got some very beautiful nature and scenery. What's Bellingen known for?
Yeah, look, it's nature-based tourism primarily. We are on the edge of the rainforest, and we're really lucky here. We've got three main towns, one that's on the coast, and our beaches are pretty uncrowded, and there's no buildings on our beaches. And then we have Bellingen itself is a little sort of hip valley with the remnants of hippies and new age stuff and lots of cafes. And because we're halfway between Brisbane and Sydney, we get a lot of really good music here. So we're well known for our music. And then up in Dorrigo, which is up on the plateau, that's sort of old style farms and sort of looks a little bit like, Wales or somewhere like that. So it's a really amazing place in terms of the different environments we have here. And there's about, I think the numbers are 57% of the Shire is either national park or state forest. And then there's another 20%, which would be private properties that.
So lots of bushwalking and trekking tourism.
Yeah, and amazingly clean rivers, and so we're really, really blessed here to have all those, those natural assets, which are, what people come for.
What was that like when the restrictions in terms of you're not allowed to travel to the regions, that campaign, that must have hurt a lot? Yeah,
and I mean, it came on top of, the bushfires. So it's been 8 months, of really tough stuff, because when we had the bushfires in September, and we were one of the earliest places to have it, the smoke and the fear and all that stuff meant that a lot of people didn't travel for their holidays to here, and so the bushfire, the community, and particularly the business community, have been struggling for 8 months now. Because we had like a 2-week breather, and then we were back into it. So, it's been really, really tough for the community.
So the bushfires, like how much of Bellingen was impacted by the bushfires?
Yeah, because did you actually have bushfires in your area, or is it more of the kind of the city's perimeter of Bellingen?
Yeah, look, we were really lucky in terms of the amount that got burned. All our neighbours lost lots and lots of houses and lots of property. We had some minor houses and sheds go up, but we never lost any properties. We're one of the few places, if you look on the map, that didn't cop it, and I think it was more about just luck. We like to think that maybe the First Nations people their ancestors were looking after us a little bit in those times. And we've got some amazing we're one of the most biodiverse regions, not only in this country, but probably in the planet in terms of what we have here. We have, on top of a big koala population, probably with us and Coffs, the biggest remaining koala population. We have other amazing things like powerful owls and greater gliders and potoroos and quolls, and just this amazing array of old rainforest. And so we were just lucky. We lost some really important bushland, but compared to our neighbouring councils, we were so lucky. And it was touch and go. It was a wind change that saved us, really.
So with the focus, obviously, on COVID-19, what happened to the koala habitat? I heard that, suddenly the focus was no longer on the bushfires and those who've been impacted by bushfires. Everything went over to COVID-19 and the health impact. How did that play out in a community like yours?
Yeah, it feels at times like it never happened, and it was so scary. I mean, Di and Kathy, I went up to Dorrigo in September when the bushfires were happening, and it was a fire that burnt for 3 months, which is, look, it's unprecedented. We've had bushfires here before, but they burnt for a week, and we'd get on top of them. But because it was so large, it was such a big fire. It had been so dry for 5 years prior to that it was absolutely. It was horrifying because I went up to the plateau because that's where it mainly was. It was a big fire up there, the Bee's Nest fire, and it felt like the end of the world. So, it was firmly imprinted in our minds of what that happened. And then we've gone into COVID. Even when the bushfires were on, I don't know, I think I might have even spoke to you, Di, when I came down to Sydney for the board meeting and said, I come to Sydney and it feels like a different world than what I've left. We had smoke where we weren't seeing the sky for 2 weeks. So we didn't see the stars or any of these things that we were used to. And, then, the COVID came on and it was like the bushfires didn't happen. And that's a worry because, we certainly want to get ready for if that happens again, because I think one of the things that was really obvious to us is that we weren't prepared enough because this place didn't used to burn as much. Now it does. And I live in the forest. And it was always a bit of a joke to be in the Rural Fire Service because, floods were our big issue. We had floods all the time. We never really had fires. That was sort of like it was just a get-together and a ride around in the fire truck. But those fires certainly changed that mentality. And we were so lucky that we did have those fire people that had that knowledge and all the other volunteers that came from all over the state and all over the country. To help during those fires, but it's changed our mentality, and it was really, really scary about, being in those areas. And we were all at this level of anxiety. We all had our cars packed with we moved all our valuables to safer places, and it was really, really scary times. And so then to go to COVID, which is a totally different fear.
Yeah.
It's been really sort of full on for the community. I don't think we've had a chance to stop and think about that long-term impact. But, but it's also, I suppose what it has done, and I know it's been said a lot, is that it sort of made us very aware of our community as well and how, and we all have minor differences about lots of different things, but we certainly all come together when we need to. And that's been a really, really important journey, which is something that Bellingen always talks about is this journey. But it certainly has been for us as a community to come together and say, hey, we are looking out for each other. And we had a great response to COVID as well, where we had all these volunteers and we knew, coming and saying, I want to help out. And we had all these vulnerable people that we could get food to and medicine to and all that stuff. So there's been a big learning curve for us. So that's a long answer to that one simple question. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. I think it's a great way to explain. I think from my perspective, I wonder, if the rescue work or the recovery work for those who've been impacted by the bushfires, is that now being stopped as a result of COVID? Because COVID meant you have to isolate and nobody can get near to anybody. So how is that for regional communities like yours when, your surrounding areas, your communities have been impacted and suddenly they're completely isolated?
Yeah, it has stopped. And we did receive some federal government funding, and some places have been able to roll that out earlier if they've had places that have lost houses and whatever. They've put that money out, but it's slowed everything down on that. Even within council, we have to look after our own staff. We had to sort of shut down council offices and have the skeleton crew on here, and we were worried about everyone else's health. And I suppose we didn't even know what was coming. We thought if it was going to be like what we'd seen in China or in Spain or in Italy, and we were very worried about that. So we certainly took those measures. So everything else got put on a back burner. And I know a lot of people that have lost their houses in some of the neighbouring shires they haven't had the sites cleaned up even. They've still got asbestos and all sorts of stuff lying around. So, there's a lot of work to be done on the recovery side still.
Tell us more about the biodiversity, because I really love wild animals and all that. I actually wanted to be a vet when I was growing up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go. My son wanted
to do this.
My son wanted to be a vet as well, but he loved animals so much. And I think one of the career days at school said, if you love animals, you can't be a vet because one day you have to put them down.
That's exactly why I was like, I can't put a dog down or anything like that. I can't bear the thought of them in pain.
That's right.
And then I just thought, during the bushfire period for you guys and your community, you must have had a lot of injured animals and perhaps some neighbouring animals from other regions as well come in as well. What was the care like during those times?
I mean, we are blessed in terms of having lots of people here that have that knowledge about what all these different species need. I mean, one of the things that we had was an ongoing campaign to protect some forests at the top of the river that I live at. There's two rivers in Bellingen. There's the Bellingen and the Kalang, and we had a headwater that was earmarked for logging, and the community came out very strongly saying we want to save this. So there was a camp of people that went up there, and they set up some cameras around there to have a look at what was up there. And we were told there wasn't much, but these cameras picked up so many amazing animals that had come at 2:00 in the morning when no one really sees them.
Like a David Attenborough show.
It was incredible. I mean, I moved up from Sydney myself, and it was such a shock.
Because you're from Parramatta, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Well, I was Seven Hills actually. So.
Okay.
Oh, that's just near our studio.
Yeah, we're filming in Blacktown.
Yeah. So, and when I actually moved to there, I came from the UK originally, came here.
Right.
When I was 7, I remember being blown away by, at that time it was all market gardens, and there was creeks, and all that wildlife was still there. It wasn't what you see now in those areas. It was just this wild country, and I was from Liverpool in England, and coming to that just blew me away. And I think that's what developed the real love for me in terms of the Australian bush. I remember seeing a stick insect on the first day I was here, and just couldn't believe that was real.
Looked like a stick. You look at anything, it's a stick.
Stick insects. I haven't seen one in many, many years.
Oh, no.
I remember growing
up.
Yeah, I remember growing up seeing a few on the gum tree, and then I don't see it anymore. I forgot all about stick insects. Yeah. So what made you move up there?
I mean, I brought my 2 girls up in Bellingen, and they are kids that don't care about things like leeches and ticks, and we have a carpet python that lives in our roof. I know everyone says that. They're not that keen on that, but it's a great rat catcher. And if you don't have it, then you get rats, and we have all sorts of things sort of in our. I can see Di looking very shocked at that. But all sorts of things like microbats and stuff that live.
Microbats?
Around, and they're a very tiny little.
Oh, that's cute.
But they're amazing mosquito hunters. It's like this whole ecosystem going on within your house.
Yeah. Well, it's like
we have another little thing called an antechinus, which is a carnivorous mouse,
Oh.
and they don't eat grain and whatever. They eat things like, cockroaches or bugs or whatever. And they're the cutest things you've ever seen. Very long noses and little ears, and
Oh gosh.
super quick, and they can go straight up they can go up a 90-degree angle. But you've got all these things sort of bouncing around, and so it's very different, hard to get used to when you first come here. But then you realise they've been here a lot longer than us, and we sort of love that now. In terms of the biodiversity, it was a massive shock when we arrived here 14 years ago. But that's the stuff I really value now. And I think one of the things that got hit really hard in the drought and the bushfires and whatever was the flying foxes, which I know a lot of people go, I hate them, they smell and whatever. But
they drop those really horrible poos that damages cars.
I haven't had the pleasure of smelling their poo.
I haven't had this pleasure of smelling their poos, but I've seen it.
Well, they are so important to. They're the pollinators of the large eucalypt forests, and we have a big colony here in Bellingen, and we're one of the few places that actually. I say we love them. I don't think everyone does, but even our local soccer team's the Bellingen Bats. So we learned to live with them, and we provide habitat for them. I think it's much tougher in the city where they do come somewhere and. They are crapping all over your car or whatever.
Yeah,
it becomes a bit of an issue. But they suffered a lot, and we found a lot of them sort of dropping out of trees and flying. And they actually are a really, really cute animal if you get to see them. They've got a little face like a little fox. And,
I think they're cute.
I've seen them. No, I don't like them. I don't like them. So why the move from Seven Hills to Bellingen, Dominic?
Do you have family there?
I don't know. I just had itchy feet, and we actually went to the eastern suburbs first for about, I don't know, we were there about 6 or 7 years. We just wanted to change. We travelled and we sort of just wanted something different than what we'd sort of grown up around. And I think I finished playing football and was very sort of unsure about what I was going to do with my life. And I was actually, I was a tradesman for a long period of time, and then I decided to quit my job, go to university, move to the eastern suburbs and have a child. And we had a child all in 1 year. So it was a massive change. And then, I always wanted to escape. I always wanted to go back to that, that sort of rambling creeks and being surrounded. Because even in Seven Hills at that time, there was lizards and turtles and all sorts of things, lots and lots of frogs when we were growing up. And I sort of wanted that for my girls. And I think my oldest girl's actually come home because of COVID from the city, so she loves coming home to our property and stuff like that. So that I think it was a number of reasons. I think I really wanted to go back to the city and to the country from the city and
back to nature.
Yeah.
So you're there now, and now you're the. Just for audience, Dominic and I are on the board of Local Government New South Wales. So that's how I got to meet Dominic and invited him on to Dawncast. And we're both new members, and it's an interesting board. The New South Wales Local Government Board is representing councils across New South Wales, and we try to represent both metropolitan and regional councils. And Dominic is from the represents regional council. So he comes into Sydney every time we have our board meetings.
And you must hate it, not the board meeting, but the city.
I love it. I love coming back, and it's sort of I love that opportunity to sort of get out and have all that. You get that opportunity to certainly eat at places that you don't get in small country towns. That's all. I hate people saying to me, "Let's go for pizza" or something. I'm like, no.
Pizza's too mainstream.
I'm going somewhere, somewhere amazing. I'm going for, Vietnamese or Thai, or I'm going for, I mean, my daughter who's a student knows all the cheap eats, and so we go to Nepalese, we go to all sorts of stuff, and that sort of makes up for any, whinging that I have about being back in the city. That's for sure.
So was the journey to be the mayor, was that something that you had planned? I mean, you said you went from a tradesman to go back to uni and study. how did you then kind of went into politics?
Well, I ended up because I had that love for animals. I was always a big David Attenborough fan as well. I always had that love of animals and stuff like that. So I think I ended up doing an environmental science degree, and then I was very concerned about where we were going in terms of what we were doing with our natural environment, and how I really think we don't put enough importance on it, and we need to make sure that we look after it. So that sort of got me into that sort of political thinking, and I realised at uni that it was only the people in the lecture hall that I was sitting with that actually knew a lot of the stuff that was going on. So I think I really wanted that message to be out there about the environment, but also I grew up in a household with very strong social justice concerns, and so I really felt that there was a need to make sure that we looked after the environment. We also looked after each other, and I think those two things sort of made me go, oh, I'm sort of interested in taking that a little bit further. But I don't think I had an aim to do it. I think I was, just things happened along the way that sort of made me go, oh, you can do this. And I think, that leadership position stuff's quite funny. And when I was playing rugby, I remember people were asking me if I wanted to be the club captain, and I was always like, why? Why are you asking me? And then I did that and quite enjoyed that. Even though I was far from the best player, for people to say, oh, we want you to sort of represent us in terms of, when we're talking to other stuff, I thought, wow, I've actually found something I'm good at. That was the other thing, maybe, talking something I can do without, I wasn't a great tradesman. I probably wasn't a great footballer either. So it's good to sort of, think that I'm a decent mayor, but who knows? We'll find out at the next election if that's true anyway.
Well, that's been postponed till next year, so got a bit of time left.
Yeah, that's right.
Look. I suppose for what is a major concern for you now in terms of where we are with COVID-19 and in terms of the work that you are doing in terms of the koala habitat?
Well, look, I mean, one of the big things that I spoke to you about, I suppose, Di, was the concept of the Great Koala National Park. And when we're talking about recovery, we know that people aren't going to be travelling overseas for the next couple of years. There's going to be a great opportunity for domestic tourism. I'm a mountain biker now. That's what I do. That's my sport. And there's a great opportunity for mountain biking, and this Great Koala National Park concept would ensure that there's a great economic benefit for everyone in this region, because it runs from Coffs Council, Bellingen Council, Nambucca Council, and Kempsey, and it links up all the national parks that are there with some really, really core koala habitat. And it would be just this amazing concept that people could come and visit, and it would include things like the Koala Hospital at Port Macquarie. You could come and do a day, a mountain bike ride through parts of the forest, or you could do a 3-week walk, staying at different parts of it if that's what you wanted. And you look at places like Tasmania, they have actually boomed through that economy of nature-based tourism, and then linking that in with food, locally grown food and opportunities for us to, the businesses to thrive on that. So, we think it's a great concept. There's a bit of a battle going on around forestry. They still want to keep logging the forest. It's not an industry that brings any jobs anymore, and I think it's time for us to sort of phase out native forestry. I think plantation timber has a place, but what's happening in the forest now is they're just getting the timber out quicker with bigger machinery, and it causes so much damage. It causes damage to our roads and our bridges, but also to our water. So we want a future for our kids for the long term, and I think the Great Koala National Park is a concept that would take off. I have no doubt that we would have people travelling everywhere, whether they're mountain bikers or walkers or people that just want to see koalas in the wild, or they will come and visit, and when they come and visit, they stay at places and they eat at our restaurants. And we've already got all this amazing yoga stuff and local food markets and stuff happening already.
So is that you're saying it's a concept?
It still isn't a concept. Yeah, we're talking to the Environment Minister, Matt Keane, and I think he's quite supportive of it. But there's a bit of a pushback for other sections of the coalition that want to see logging continuing. I mean, the reality about logging jobs is they're usually, they're poorly paid, they're low skilled, they're dirty jobs that people don't stay in long. They're not people going out with an axe into the forest and chopping a tree down anymore. It's done by big machinery. There's not a lot of jobs in it. And it's probably time for us to transition out of that and look at how we can look after those forestry workers. But there's also scope for a local logging industry to happen at a smaller level. I mean, what's happening in our forests at the moment is, and during COVID, it's actually up. It's gone up. There's been lots more logging happening, which has been really, really devastating to the community because we lost so much in the fire. I mean, they're talking about 1 billion species dying in those fires, and we know how much is out there. So to see our forests getting really hit hard now is really, really worrying for us. And we're certainly asking for the government to re-look at what's happening in that industry, and it's not sustainable anymore. So we'd love them to take the concept on. I think it would give an opportunity also for First Peoples to be employed in those ranger jobs, and they're a real, there's a real issue with employment of our First People in this region. And I was a teacher at one of the schools and grew up, in some of those. It was a tough school out of Barraville, but the kids were amazing, loyal, good kids. When you got in as part of, it took you about 5 years to get in, but when you did, they were a great bunch of kids. But they need opportunities, and those opportunities need to be local. So many wins for this, I think.
So where is it at in terms of the concept? What stage is it at, and when do you see it coming to fruition?
Well, what we have done is we've Bellingen Council and Coffs Council and Destination North Coast have all thrown in $25,000 to do an economic study on the benefits of the Great Koala National Park, but also to look at, what are the jobs left in the timber industry, and how could we transition those jobs to something else, or to have an industry that was, much more focused on producing high quality timber products rather than, wood chips or pallets and stuff like that. Some of that wood's going to now. So we've got that happening now. We've got a brief out looking for people to take that role on. The Bellingen Shire Council has when we've got the new highway, our old visitor information centre at our coastal destination called Urunga has been now taken over by the National Parks Association, who have the ownership of this concept. So they're running so it has a physical presence now, which we think is a really, really good idea. So people can go in, tourists can come by and have a look at what this concept looks like, and look at the maps and see some short films about the sort of country that we're trying to protect. And we're constantly lobbying the government to sort of come on board. And I think it would be a great opportunity for a recovery project for the government. I have no doubt in my mind that we will have lots of visitors here, and we would have more if that happens. And there's so many benefits to all the other businesses that survive in this region if we get that concept up. And the big bonus is we actually get to save the koalas, because they are in dire straits at the moment. We've lost, in 50 years, we've nearly lost half of the numbers that we've got. And I don't know the numbers about what's happened in these fires, but I think the stats won't be good, because, as we all know about koalas, it would be very hard for them to flee those bushfires. And they were certainly, some of the biggest and intense bushfires that anyone has seen. And that's the message we're getting from our volunteers, is that they've seen nothing like it before. So it's a great opportunity for us to be resilient. And we're looking at things like cultural burns as well, which is, that reduces the risk of those fires being so big, but also it increases biodiversity. So we've got all these plans about how we can spend that money to be much more resilient and to protect that amazing, that natural heritage that belongs to everyone.
Yep.
Actually, that belongs to all of Australia and probably the planet. So, it's a win for the environment. We just need the support of the government.
Is there anything that you need from if a listener watches and listen to this podcast? Is there any call to action that you'd like for them to do?
Well, look, they can go on and look at the Great Koala National Park. If you Google that, it'll come up. There's a website there, and you can find out the information. You can sign on to say, yes, I support it. You can donate to it, I would say to people, when this lockdown comes down, we'd love to have you guys come up, and I can give you a special tour.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
We're going to go.
I need to learn how to ride a bike first.
Yeah, same here. The two of us.
Well, the beauty about mountain biking too is, there's a lot of these electronic mountain bikes now.
Is that cheating?
You don't even have to be super fit. You can just, fly along. So, and those sort of concepts, those business ideas are, they would be super for here.
We'll take you up on that.
We'll do.
We'll visit Bellingen for sure.
Yeah, okay.
As soon as the government says you're allowed to visit the region, go
out of here.
Yeah, so yeah, I suppose it's people will still want those family holidays, and we've got an amazing coastline that's really accessible to a lot of people as well, and that's one of the other things that we would really like to move forward with as well, is to have some of our places that are accessible to people with disabilities and access issues. So we've got an amazing couple of boardwalks, and we've got bike trails and stuff that run along the coastline, and they're the things that we really want to promote as well. So I say to people, it's like Tasmania, except it's got better weather, and you don't have to travel as far. So it is really a special place, and like I say, to support it, people could come visit the Visitor Information Centre and say, yeah, we think it's a great concept as well, and it'll be a win for everyone. We just got to make sure that we do look after those timber workers and those timber businesses as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's certainly a battle, but it's something that we can do. It's something we can work together and do.
Thanks so much, Dominic, for your time. I really appreciate that. And for the listeners and those audience who are watching this, as Dominic says, you can go to the Great Koala. Is that right? The Great Koala?
Great Koala National Park.
Great Koala National Park.org.au.
Well, if you put that in Google, you will definitely get it. Or I put in GKNP today in Google, and it came up. So
wow,
right,
good SEO.
Yeah, it must be getting a few hits to be up there. But
we'll find the link and we'll share that on this podcast with our audience.
I think I sent the link through Di originally. With some of the original information. So yeah, that'd be great if you could share that with your listeners.
Yeah, we'll definitely add it.
Yes, and once the whole restrictions gets lifted, we'll definitely visit Bellingen.
We'll go mountain biking,
and everything.
Pat some koalas.
You could do it. You could do a set, Kathy.
Thank you very much for your time once again, and you're watching our episode of Dawncast. I'm Di Lee.
And I'm Kathy Ngo.
Please remember to subscribe if you want to hear more of this kind of content by clicking the link below. So see you next time. Bye.
See you next time.
Bye.